So, can you really increase your testosterone naturally? Well, if you stick with me, you'll find out. So a few years back, I was in the gym and some old veteran bodybuilder said that to increase my testosterone, I need to be squatting, deadlifting, benching, all that stuff. Apparently, according to him, machines and cables were a complete waste of time because it didn't spike certain hormones. At the time, it seemed quite convincing, and there is a little bit of truth to it. So I believe this testosterone myth for years. First started training, as I said, I was told probably exactly what you've been told. Lift heavy, do compounds, boost testosterone, build more muscle. Like I say, there is some truth to it. Training does increase testosterone after your session. We've known that for years. So the logic was simple. Testosterone was anabolic. More testosterone means more muscle. Therefore, heavy training must work better because it spikes your hormones more. That's what I believed. It sounded smart, but doesn't really paint the whole picture. If you closely look at the data, then testosterone spikes, they're very, very minimal. They spike maybe for an hour, and then after that, they return back to baseline. That is nowhere near long enough or high enough to actually result in more muscle growth. Yes, heavy training is beneficial, but not for the majority of the reasons that the internet makes out. It works because it's involved in progressive overload, it causes a lot of damage and stress on your muscles, and that's what drives growth. More research backs this up, saying different training styles can result in different testosterone responses. They don't lead to any difference in muscle growth. So in plain English, bigger testosterone spikes does not result in more muscle growth. So if you're choosing to train just to purely increase your hormones, you're completely missing the point. So naturally, the next question is how much testosterone would actually make a difference? So in healthy men, testosterone sits with a pretty wide normal range. Here's the uncomfortable truth. There's no good evidence that pushing your testosterone higher within that normal range suddenly makes you more muscular. But once you go way beyond natural levels, different story. There's a famous study where some men trained naturally, some men trained while injecting testosterone, some that injected testosterone without training, and some did nothing. The wild part, the guys injecting testosterone without training built more muscle than the guys training naturally. Why? Because the testosterone wasn't slightly higher, it was up to 6 times the amount of the guys not taking testosterone. It completely dwarfs any testosterone spikes that we've just mentioned purely through resistance training. These bigger movements aren't magic, and using machines and cables isn't gonna slow down your progress. That said, fixing low testosterone, if you have it, is crucial. If someone has low testosterone and then brings that back up to a normal level, they will naturally increase their muscle mass much easier. If you're already within a healthy range, chasing high numbers to cause these spikes is completely pointless. Now let's talk about how people accidentally tank the testosterone. So overtraining is a big one. Hammering themselves into the floor, training more than they should, training longer than they should, not getting adequate rest in between them sessions. Testosterone will drop and cortisol will take over. Next, in terms of your diet, obviously what matters is calories and protein intake. But when it comes to dieting, just make sure that you are not crash dieting, being on very, very low calories for a prolonged period of time, because naturally that can absolutely tank your testosterone long term. And on the flip side, being very, very overweight is not ideal for your testosterone either. So somewhere in between, averaging between 10 and 20% body fat is the perfect range to maintain a healthy level of testosterone. When it comes to the macronutrients, so your protein, your carbs and fats, having low fats for a prolonged period of time, again, can impact that testosterone. Yes, we want to cut back on carbs and fats to obviously lose body fat, but you want to make sure really that they're still within a healthy range, or it can have other impacts, not just obviously losing that body fat. Micronutrients also matter. If you're deficient, zinc and vitamin D are massive. Beyond that, most testosterone boosters are a complete waste of time. Another thing we need to look at is lifestyle. So sleep is one of the most important. Consistently running on 5 or 6 hours sleep is not going to help. I know it's hard, but try and make sure that 7 hours a night is a non-negotiable and push for 8 where possible. If you're drinking a lot of alcohol as well, that's massively going to lower your testosterone over a prolonged period of time. Chronic stress, exactly same story. One thing that did make me laugh when I was doing the research for this video, the fact that sexual arousal can drastically increase your testosterone. That includes interactions with attractive women. Studies show it's possible to increase testosterone by up to 30% by just having a conversation with an attractive woman. Erotic content can obviously increase your testosterone for a short period of time. Actually, a study where it shows that watching a short erotic clip before the gym drastically improves that strength within that session. So if you're not in your strength goals, watch a little bit of porn, get yourself in the gym, happy days. Relationship status plays a role too. Single men and men in new relationships tend to have higher testosterone than men in long-term ones. That doesn't mean you should sack off your partner. It's correlation, obviously not cause. Regular sex also seems to be very beneficial. Ejaculation itself doesn't lower testosterone as well, despite what a lot of weirdos will say on the internet. So here's the bottom line. There's no magic exercise. There's no magic supplement. You train hard consistently. You recover well either side of that. Diet properly and you have a good amount of body fat. Not too much, not too less. You sleep properly. You manage your stress and you live like a healthy adult. Your testosterone should be exactly where it needs to be. I would always recommend to people, and I do this with clients when obviously we take them through a photo shoot, is when you go through certain phases, whether it's obviously a lean gain, so you're building more muscle, or you're in an aggressive fat loss phase, usually between average is probably every 3 to 6 months when you're in one of them phases. At the end of each phase, really, if you don't do it for both, I would at least do it for the fat loss phase. Try and get a blood test done just to sort of like see where your levels are at. See if obviously that phase that you've been in has had an impact on any form of like hormone levels. You'll be able to see obviously where you're doing well, maybe some areas obviously that need work, and then obviously you can supplement accordingly, or you know obviously where to adjust your diet and what to add into your diet to obviously to make sure that all the levels across the board are consistent and obviously in a good spot. When it is, everything else in your life will work better. You'll be more productive. You'll be better sleep. You'll have more energy. Everything will benefit as a byproduct of having this as a sole priority and everything else around it being the priority. So hopefully you got something from this video. It's provided some form of value in whatever sense. I'm done with saying like, comment, subscribe now. If you like it, like it. If you want to comment. If you want to subscribe, happy days, no pressure. So that's your lot. Thanks for coming. Peace.